Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 11th of March and we're going to cover three very important topics which are in news. The free trade agreement with European Free Trade Association has finally been signed. European Free Trade Association comprises of four countries, that is Norway, Switzerland, Liechtenstein and Iceland. What is unique about this free trade agreement? There are two things which are unique. First is, for the very first time, a chapter on conservation of human rights and sustainable development has been introduced in any free trade agreement all across the world. The second unique feature about this free trade agreement is that there has been a commitment of investment of $100 billion in the coming 15 years by the EFTA countries in India. $50 billion have to be invested in the first 10 years from now and $50 billion in the next 5 years. This has never been done in any of the free trade agreements signed across the world. India has been looked upon by many countries all across the world as an alternate to China. It became very important for India to sign this agreement because there are competitors like Vietnam and Mexico for India. So this deal was signed. Next is vacancies in the Election Commission of India. Election Commission of India comprises of the Chief Election Commissioner and two election commissioners. One of the election commissioners has resigned yesterday and one has retired. So both these positions are vacant. The government has called a meeting on the 14th of March to fill these vacancies because, the general elections are around the corner. Maybe in a week or so, the Election Commission of India is going to announce the schedule of the general elections. But with these vacancies there in place at the top hierarchy, will definitely pose certain problems for the Election Commission of India. The appointment will be done according to the new process where the Prime Minister, a Cabinet Minister and Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha will be part of that committee which will appoint the election commissioners. Next is Gulf of Tonkin. The Gulf of Tonkin is in the South China Sea. It is a crescent-shaped gulf where multiple rivers from the mainland, they drain their waters. Multiple ports are there of Vietnam and China. Why this is in news? Because China has started laying claims over certain portions of the Gulf of Tonkin. Obviously, Vietnam has a problem with this. We can sum up and say that the experiments of China in the South China Sea are still on and running, which is a cause of concern for the countries in the vicinity. So let's get started and see all these three topics. The free trade agreement with European Free Trade Association. So first of all, what is a free trade agreement? It is an agreement between two countries or a bloc where, international trade becomes more competitive with the reduction in tariffs, import duties and export duties. Either import duties and export duties are reduced to zero or they are very minimal, which will definitely make trade more competitive and enhance trade. Apart from it, free trade agreement also entails provisions with respect to investments. Now, this European Free Trade Association is basically an organization which comprises of four countries. These four countries are Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. They already have a free trade agreement among these four countries, these four members. There is a free trade agreement among them. That free trade agreement only gave them this title of European Free Trade Association. Now, this entity, European Free Trade Association and India also have a free trade agreement among them. This free trade agreement is named as Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement. That free trade agreement which is there between the EFTA countries and India. That is called as Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement. Now, this is the same agreement which went into shambles last month, where India said that we are not going to accept the exclusivity clause of the European Free Trade Agreement or Free Trade Association. What was that exclusivity clause? Where the generic medicine manufacturers in India were not allowed to sell their medicines in these four countries. Why? Because they did not have that data of clinical trials. And this was settled with, they have agreed, and that is why this agreement has been signed. The European Free Trade Association is the intergovernmental organization of Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland, set up in 1960 for the promotion of free trade and economic integration between its members. It is not EU. Don't confuse it with EU. Our talks for a free trade agreement with EU, since EU is a separate entity, are ongoing. Our talks with UK, which is not part of EU now after Brexit, are also still ongoing. Yes, we have achieved this with respect to European Free Trade Association, these four countries which are not part of EU. Now, what makes it unique, this particular agreement? There are two unique features. First is, there has been included a chapter on commitment of human rights and sustainable development for the very first time in the history of free trade agreements. Now, these countries, the European Free Trade Association countries, they are very much keen on upholding the human rights. These countries are largely developed, their human rights are secured very, very well, and they consider themselves as champions of human rights. So, they have included this chapter in this particular free trade agreement. We have agreed to it. And the second is that there's a binding commitment of investment of $100 billion in India from EFTA countries over the next 15 years. $50 billion in the first 10 years, $50 billion in the next 5 years. And there will be certain grace period also, although there's not much clarity on this. But yes, it is believed that there will be certain grace periods also of 1 or 2 or 3 years. And then if the commitment is not met, means if $100 billion have not been invested by them, then India can withdraw itself from certain clauses which are there in the European Free Trade Association Free Trade Agreement with India. The current investment from these countries in India is somewhere around $10.7 billion. Now we have to make it to $100 billion in the next 15 years. This is basically the clause. Now, why the timing of this FTA is crucial? We need to understand this as well. Now, this year, that is 2024, is a very unique year in terms of elections. More than or around 64 countries in the world will undergo elections. More than half of the world's population will go into polling this year. And when there are election years, then these kind of agreements like free trade agreements with other countries and all, they get sidelined. They get on the back burner. They're not prioritized. So it was very much important for this agreement to be signed now. This was one such reason. The timing of this FTA is crucial. The second reason, that is the main reason which I consider, is China. Now you might be wondering that why China over here? See, post-COVID, many countries in the world, they have been moving away from China. They want to reduce their dependencies on China because China tried to create certain kind of situations. Like China tried to hijack the economies of many countries, including India. And I would say, excuse or the reason given by China was logistical difficulties, the supply chain disruptions. And that is why, countries all over the world have started looking for alternates to China. And one such alternate is India. India has its own limitations. India does not have that much money. India does not have that much technology. And to bring in that technology, to bring in that investment, this particular free trade agreement is going to be crucial. That is why that $100 billion investment clause is there. Apart from it, is India the only country to which countries all across the world are looking up to? No, it is not the case. Countries are looking up to countries like Mexico also, which is there in the vicinity of USA, North America. Countries are looking up to Vietnam, which is there in ASEAN. So we can definitely say that countries like Mexico and Vietnam are our competitors. And if we need to stay ahead of them, or we need to stay ahead of our competitors, we need to take swift decisions. We need to take timely decisions. And that is why, again, the timing of this FTA is crucial. So, competitors like Vietnam and Mexico of India are there. Competitors in what sense? Competitors in those sense where countries are looking for alternates apart from China because they want to move away from China. And a delay in streamlining investments flows and renewed attempts at global integration may turn out to be a missed geopolitical opportunity by India, which India does not want. And that is why you might see the hype around that semiconductor industry also. The increased focus on that industry very lately is clearly highlighting the fact that India is wanting to be and considered as an alternate to China. Which sectors can be benefited? Investments in technology can be benefited. Now, why investments in technology? Because one of the countries is basically Norway, and Norway has this $1.6 trillion sovereign wealth fund. It is the world's largest such pension fund, which gives pension to the people over there. It posted a record profit of $213 billion in 2023 in the back of strong returns on its investments in technology stocks. So it has profit also, means more amount of money it has. It has to invest that money, and it has got expertise in investing in technology. So investments in technology can be considered. Pharma, chemical sectors, food processing, engineering sectors. And sectors like pharma especially, we are dependent upon China. Engineering sectors like semiconductor chips and all, we're dependent upon China as of now. So this will definitely reduce our dependencies on China and increase other countries' dependencies on us. That is what we need to understand. Now, why will it be difficult to access EFTA markets for India? Actually, one of the countries in EFTA, that is Switzerland, it opened its market to every country in the world and said that if you are exporting us any commodity, we will not be levying any import duty on that. And that is a universal rule for every country. Means I am an exporter to Switzerland, my goods will reach there. China is an exporter to Switzerland, China's goods will be reaching there in Switzerland. Or XYZ, any country's goods reaches Switzerland. Switzerland is not levying import duty on any of the goods. And this will increase competition for us. This will not give our goods a strategic edge due to this EFTA, which it should be getting. So it is basically there that zero tariff goods are accepted by Switzerland. So there's no point of signing this EFTA, or this EFTA will be beneficial in Switzerland particularly or not, is a big question. And our trade with Switzerland among these 4 EFTA countries is the maximum. So that is why it will be difficult to access EFTA markets, because our goods will not be given priority by reduced tariff or no tariff. Our goods will have to match the Chinese goods, which are actually cheaper than us because of the scale of production which has been achieved over there in China. So that is going to be a problem. India's goods will face stiffer competition despite any tariff elimination that would be part of the deal. Now, what is the difference between EFTA and EU? That EFTA free trade agreement is over. Just additional information. This is that what is the difference between EFTA and EU? These are two different entities. First of all, EU is a supranational political and economic union of 27 countries. When I say supranational, means certain element of autonomy or certain element of sovereignty is ceded to EU. EU has its own parliament. EU has its own justice dispensation system, which obviously comprises of members from these 27 countries only. But this European Free Trade Association is nothing but an intergovernmental organization for the promotion of free trade and economic integration between its members. Its members, we know there are 4 members only. So, two different things. EU is a supranational body which has a common market, joint border control, a Supreme Court, and regular popular elections. A common currency is also there, euro. So, this is the difference between EFTA and EU. But yes, there is a linkage between EFTA and EU. And that linkage is Schengen Area, or Schengen Area we call it. Schengen Area, it was basically established in 1985. Now, what is this Schengen Area? Means it vanishes or finishes off the border controls. Means you don't require a visa to travel from one country to the other country. You have to take only one visa. Let's suppose I'm going from India. I have to take only the Schengen visa. And by that Schengen visa, I can travel to these countries where Schengen visa is accepted. Where is Schengen visa accepted? Is it accepted in all EU countries? No. It is accepted in only 23 EU countries out of 27 EU countries. 23 EU countries. There are 4 EU countries where Schengen visa is not accepted. These 4 countries are Bulgaria, Romania, Cyprus and Ireland. Means these countries are part of EU, but they are not part of the Schengen agreement. Means if you have to go to these countries, you will have to take a separate visa of these countries from the authorities over there. So it is like this. Apart from it, 23 EU countries. Apart from that, 4 EFTA countries. These 4 EFTA countries we know: Norway, Liechtenstein, Iceland and Switzerland. These 4 are not part of EU, but they are part of the Schengen agreement. Means border controls are relaxed. If you have to travel from these EU countries to these non-EU countries, you can travel without a visa. This basically is the linkage between EU and EFTA, European Union and European Free Trade Association. So this is what we need to understand. Next is vacancies in Election Commission of India, ECI. Election Commission of India is a constitutional body established according to Article 324 of the Constitution. Election Commission of India is the body which is responsible for conducting free and fair elections in the country. The Election Commission of India comprises of 3 top people. First is the Chief Election Commissioner and 2 election commissioners. Now, since the topic reads vacancies in Election Commission of India, the Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, is there. Not a problem. But one election commissioner, Mr. Arun Goyal, has resigned. That is a problem. And the second election commissioner, Mr. A.C. Pandey, has retired. So this is basically a major cause of concern for Election Commission of India, especially at a time when the general elections are around the corner in 2024. In a week's time or so, Election Commission of India is also stated to announce the schedule of the general elections coming up this year. And in this situation, 2 of the prominent figures in Election Commission of India, or 2 of the prominent positions in Election Commission of India, are vacant. That is something which is concerning. That is why the government has called a meeting on 14th of March. Actually, it was scheduled for 15th of March earlier. It has been preponed to 14th of March. Let's see what happens. Now, appointment, tenure and removal of commissioners, how it is done, that should be known. The President appoints the CEC and election commissioners. They have a fixed tenure of how much? 6 years. That is why this guy, Mr. A.C. Pandey, retired. Either he might have completed 6 years or might have completed the age of 65 years, whichever is earlier. They enjoy the same status and receive salary as perks as available to the judges of Supreme Court. Now, how the appointment will be done? Appointment will be done according to a new law passed in 2023. Now, what is this new law? we will see abhi. We have already seen that in the month of December, but yes, we'll again see that. How they are removed? First, they can resign in time, and this is what Mr. Arun Goel has done. The resignation is submitted to the president and also be removed for the expiry of their term. They can also be removed before the expiry of their term, or they can resign. How they are removed? They are removed in the same manner as a judge of the Supreme Court is removed. Means an impeachment process is, there in the parliament for that purpose. So that is the process of removal. Now, aren't there provisions with respect to appointment and all mentioned in the constitution? Actually, no. The constitution, article 324, all says that, the president should appoint the chief election commissioner and election commissioners. The composition is there. It consists of an chief election commissioner and 2 other ECs. The constitution provides that the appointment of CEC and EC shall subject to the provisions of any law made by the parliament. So now a law has been made by the parliament in December 2023, that is 2-3 months ago, which although ran into controversies, we'll see what the law was and why it ran into controversies. But before December 2023, there was no law. Means it was up to the whims and fancies of the government to appoint chief election commissioners and election commissioners. There was a law which was passed by the parliament, but that law was with respect to conditions of service, but it was silent on appointments. Now in December 2023, appointments for appointments also a law has been made. Now the provisions of the law, the bill which was passed in December 2023, the bill proposes a selection committee to appoint the CEC and EC. Prime Minister will be there, part of that committee. Leader of opposition or the largest opposition party in the Lok Sabha, and any cabinet minister chosen by the Prime Minister. This is going to be the selection committee or the appointments committee for CEC and EC. Then this CEC and EC will choose names from the list of names given to it by a search committee. Search committee is headed by cabinet secretary with 2 other members, not below the rank of secretary, to the government of India to prepare panel of 5 members. Now in the current situation, since Mr. Arun Goel, the election commissioner, has resigned, 5 names will be recommended for that position, and 5 names will be recommended for that position where Mr. Pandey has retired. So in total 10 names will be suggested to the selection committee or the appointments committee. Qualification: CEC and EC will be selected from amongst those members who are holding or have held the position of secretary to the government of India, should be persons of integrity and having expertise in or experience in electoral processes. So this is what or how the appointment is going to be. But yes, we need it as soon as possible. And the last piece of news is Gulf of Tonkin. Gulf of Tonkin is in news again because of China, the expansionist tendencies of China in the South China Sea has now been spread to the Gulf of Tonkin, which is there in the northwestern side of the South China Sea. And China has officially disclosed a new baseline outlining its territorial claims in the northern part of Gulf of Tonkin, an area shared with Vietnam. Now, if you see the map, so this is Gulf of Tonkin, this crescent shape. Okay. And this is South China Sea. This entire is South China Sea. From here also it is South China Sea. This is the northwestern part of South China Sea. So Vietnam is over here, where this red river is coming from China and entering into Vietnam and draining over here. So here, in the northern part, it has laid claims over certain territories. China. Vietnam is obviously questioning this because it is Vietnam's also. The announcement was made through a statement on Foreign Ministry's website earlier this month. Now, this particular topic can be covered as places in news. So, Gulf of Tonkin, you should know the place where it is. And, you know, it is also known as Bibu Gulf in China. The Bibu Gulf in China is Gulf of Tonkin only. Multiple ports are there. Like, for example, when I talk about this Vietnam, so this Haiphong port over here, which you see, is a major port in Vietnam. Some ports, one of the ports in China is also there in this region. So earlier, the Chinese, intentions were seen over here, the Paracel Island, the Spratly Islands. China was claiming these islands, the Pratas Island and all over here. Now China's tendencies, expansionist tendencies are visible over here also in the Gulf of Tonkin. That is why it was in news. And with this, we come to end of today's session as well. I will be seeing you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.